Building artificial intelligence currently requires an immense amount of steel, copper, and raw electricity. These physical resources have become the primary constraint on how fast the technology can grow. This chart shows the capital expenditures of the major tech giants. To secure enough physical hardware, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, and Meta have pushed their combined spending past $850 billion. Demand for these resources is accelerating. In early 2026, the AI lab Anthropic saw its usage surge 80-fold in a single quarter, far exceeding its own growth projections. This spike in traffic created an immediate shortage. Top developers found themselves without enough compute capacity, waiting months for shipments of these specialized processors just to keep their existing services online. As models become more difficult to distinguish from one another, the code itself is becoming a commodity. The enduring leverage in the industry is held by those who own the physical chips and the power grids that run them. This reliance on hardware anchors digital tools to specific locations. Take Memphis, Tennessee, where developers are attempting a massive expansion of computing infrastructure. To build a supercomputer called Colossus I, engineers couldn't wait for standard power grid upgrades. They installed dozens of natural gas turbines on site to generate the hundreds of megawatts required to run the facility. Generating that much power locally led to protests over air quality and noise. It highlights a difficult reality for the industry. Earth's existing power grids and local environments cannot expand fast enough to meet the current demand. Facing these limits, Anthropic had to secure multi-billion-dollar cloud deals with infrastructure companies like Akamai just to maintain its operations through the end of the year. The land, water, and electricity needed for these server clusters are reaching their physical limits. This local friction creates a barrier to scaling, forcing the industry to look for infrastructure alternatives. In early 2026, Elon Musk's AI startup, XAI, began to struggle. While initially framed as a top-tier competitor, its models were falling behind those of rivals like Anthropic. The financial cost of staying in the race was high. XAI was losing roughly $28 million every day on hardware and energy costs, even as its user base stopped growing. To manage the debt, Musk dissolved XAI as an independent company. He moved its assets, including its massive data centers, directly into his aerospace firm, SpaceX. This structural move protected SpaceX's core business from XAI's losses. It cleaned up the balance sheet ahead of a planned $1.25 trillion initial public offering, presenting a more stable financial narrative to investors. By ending XAI's life as a standalone software company, Musk prioritized the stability of his aerospace empire over the mounting costs of a software competition. After the merger, SpaceX had a massive supercomputer in Memphis, but no longer needed it to train its own flagship models. Instead, the company began renting the hardware to other firms. In May 2026, SpaceX signed a deal to give Anthropic full access to the Colossus I facility. This provided Anthropic with 300 megawatts of power and over 220,000 processors. This created a business model known as a neocloud. SpaceX generates billions in revenue by acting as a landlord for hardware, avoiding the high risks and expenses of software development. Providing the infrastructure is proving to be more secure than the software business itself. Owning the hardware allows a company to collect rent from the entire industry, regardless of which specific AI model is the most popular. Even with the massive capacity in Memphis, Anthropic's demand for compute is still growing. The hardware on the ground is only a temporary solution. The SpaceX agreement includes a long-term plan to develop gigawatts of computing capacity located in orbit. Terrestrial solar farms are limited by weather and the day-night cycle. A satellite captures constant solar energy, bypassing grid delays. Earth data centers consume millions of gallons of water. In space, servers radiate heat directly into the vacuum, eliminating water entirely. Because terrestrial energy projects often face years of grid delays and environmental opposition, orbital infrastructure is becoming a necessary path for scaling artificial intelligence. Lower launch costs have made it feasible to lift heavy server clusters into orbit. SpaceX's ability to reach space frequently and at a high volume allows it to build infrastructure that was previously impossible. This gives one company control over space transportation and the orbital servers that process data. It places the most critical infrastructure for AI under one roof. The intelligence race is currently a contest over heavy industry and aerospace. Success depends on the physical hardware and the energy to power it,